right, before we continue that mini-series on creating animated tunnels, I wanted to branch out to a slightly different topic, kind of going back to the ray tracer, PuppyRay, just to show you something that we will possibly also use to build some tunnels very soon. Let's take a look quickly at this here. I have a map that I created, and I just wanted to see what it looks like when I render that out into a 3D world. So what you can see, maybe I can make it a little bit faster. There you go. Kind of a scene in which the canal or the channel is branching out into three different areas here. It's like a Y shape or a fork with three channels. That in itself is really an interesting shape to explore for tunnels, and you can enhance, you can increase the extrusion depth here, the elevation. So if you render that out, maybe with the fog, let's see here, further down, you can see it tiles up infinitely, a very far vision, or you can bring it back closer and have that fog right there at the front. There you go. So you can adjust that. Let's do a quick high quality render just to get an idea of what we are looking at in a little bit crisper display here. It'll take about 3 or 4 seconds. There you go. So something like this would be a really interesting one to use as a tunnel as well. Now, of course, in the ray tracer, we'll only see the upper part, the lower part being rendered here. But we always can think outside the box here and perhaps render the bottom half and then flip it upside down, mirror it, right, so that we have a tunnel or sort of a cave, and we fly through that. So I wanted to kind of go through the steps of doing something like that. Essentially we have an image like this that we want to create. This one here is a little bit more blocky, and that's really the one I was using with that ray tracer. So let's just see how to create this in just a few seconds, right? Starting from a scratch plain white image. What you'll want to do is grab some of the brushes that do something like this. This is a very noisy, dirty type of brush. If you look at the preview on the custom brush, it's something like this. Let me put it to full opacity. There you go. So what you see is kind of broken bits, right? And not all of them the same intensity. Some of them black, some of them light gray, dark gray, a kind of a mix. And the brush settings are such that there is a random noise, random positioning, you see that here, random size, random angle. All of these parameters contribute to making it a very noisy brush, and that's what we will be looking for. Now, these you can experiment with, and you can play and set, and also change the opacity or even the mode of the brush. So you have an opacity that is perhaps very low, but on top of that, instead of doing the replace mode, you could do an additive mode, or you could do a subtractive mode, or some others. A lot of ways to create this type of behavior in a brush. And also, if you don't have time, you just go to Browse Media and pick some of the presets, because we have some of these right there. For instance, in the favorites category, I think you'll see some presets like these here. Let me go pin this down. And let's say here's a preset that looks like this. Let me go and erase this. There's another one here. Any of these will be really interesting as a starting point to perhaps further modify or adjust the brush that you actually use. Let me see. I think under grime I might have found that. Yep, there's a couple there under the grime category. Those are really interesting too. So let's grab, I think this is the one here. That's the one, the Grime Ripper. All right, let's go get the Grime Ripper and set it to 100% on the view, so we see the entire image, or even zoom out a little bit. Let's clear it to white. And again, what we'll do is we'll do some sort of a fork. So we'll just drag up like this and go up like that and create sort of a Y shape. Now this is a little bit too intense, so I'm going to reduce the opacity even more. Very low, maybe 10, and so now it's only a little bit, and I can go up and down along that main path perhaps reinforce each of those a little bit. And the thing I want to do is also perhaps add a little bit of softness to that by giving it, I don't know, some filter, Gaussian blur. Let's get that blur, Gaussian blur very quickly in here. And then go back on it with more crisp detail. So you want to zoom in, you want to go and paint that, and then at some point what you want to do is make sure that it's fully black at the bottom of that cavern, of that path, right? This needs to go totally black so that it's going to flatten down to the ground. It will have sort of a path that is fully level flat. Let me go bring the opacity up a little bit just so it goes a little bit faster, and there you go. Then one thing I'll want to do is make sure that this tiles, that this will be able to go seamlessly, and we don't see a wall or something like that at the end of one of these channels. So one thing I'm also going to do, by the way, is kind of little disturbances sideways here, some side channels. You never know, it might turn out looking like water erosion, the beginning stages of rivers. Because this is elevation maps in the end, right? This will be whatever is white or bright is going to be high elevation, and whatever is dark is going to be low elevation. And it's going to be upside down, flipped. That's something that we still have in the ray tracer, but that's okay. We can go and make it seamless also, make sure that this opening at the bottom will be still open at the top, and it will therefore seamlessly continue. This one here though will show a wall. We have black here on the bottom side is white, so we may need to kind of branch it out a little bit. Same thing here on this side, and we could actually use simply the the make seamless tool here. That will help a little bit. So oh, I still have the animation from the prior test, so let's go and actually clear that. Let's go and free, there it is, animation free. All right, so we start from a clean slate there with just one image, and now let's go store this image, and create an animation from that. Now maybe I'm not quite sure if it's ready actually, so I might still do a couple of more additions to that. And then I'll say, well, okay, let's see if that's really looking good for ray tracing. So I'm going to go to, okay, store this one more time. Okay, now filter to the Puppy Ray Tracer, perhaps the fast one with the GPU. And in this mode, what I want to do really is just test it as I fly through it, kind of get an idea, get a sense. If I fly through that, am I going to kind of see what I want to see? For instance, if I go right in here, am I able to go through that corridor, through that wall, without hitting any walls, without hitting any sort of steps? Here I've gone through one iteration, and now I'm seeing that channel, that split again, the fork. I can change the let's see, the scale, so I can make it a little bit flatter. Let's go down to preview so it's a little bit faster. And so I think this is pretty good. I can use that now. I can also change the skies a little bit for more reddish color. You see the bluish tint on the sky with the horizon because of the fog. That's a bluish tint right there on the fog, but the sky itself is a reddish color. When you look up, you'll see it up there. And that's why the ground is turning red, because I have the global illumination enabled. If I turn that off, it's whatever the color from the ground is, which is kind of a grayish color. And the light source also. The light source provides some illumination, and the color of that light also will have an impact there. But if I add the global illumination from the sky, that's a really nice coloring effect. For much more of a, well, global illumination. That's what it does. We call it that way for a reason. So let's say the fog, I might want to do that. Okay, so essentially now I'm ready to turn this into, let's go undo, let's turn this into an animation. And so I'm going to go right there, create an animation. Let's say I want this to be 200 frames long, and it's going to play at 30 frames a second. Let's double check that. Frames per second is 30. Yep, there it is. All right, let's go and store that. Remember, this is now in version 9.2, something you'll just want to do a lot. Either store to memory if it's a short animation. This one's a little bit longer, large, high resolution. Maybe you'll want to keep it to disk. so as to not jeopardize the memory available for other work we need to do here. So we have this snapshot here. We can easily use that to get back to that as we experiment. So one thing I'll do also is created some sort of a give it a little bit of a square shape. So that's what you'll see here with the transform mosaic there. Give it a mosaic look, right? And I want to do that on this one frame and then just recreate the structure on the animation side. So okay, that I could actually have applied it. Hold on, let me do this way. That's one thing too that you'll see. Many of these filters, even though they're not necessarily made specifically for animation, many of them also have an animate capability, meaning that you can apply them across the image sequence that you have in the animation. Right, so if I'm going to mosaic, for instance, you can see that I can set the value here for that particular level of mosaic. You can also switch to side-by-side mode in many of these filters now. That's since version 9.1 or 9.0, I forget, we have this capability to see them side by side, before and after, so to speak. And then when you are happy with the level you want, instead of just clicking OK, which would apply it on this one frame but leave the others untouched, what you want is to apply it to the animation. So there's this button here called Animate, and that will apply it to all frames. So that's a really cool, fast way to do that. Now, it still takes 2 seconds, but that's already done now. So I'm going to store this animation now. So store animation to disk. And I probably don't need this one anymore. We'll probably toss that once this one is stored. And there it is. So that one's stored away. I'm going to toss this one. Again, it doesn't take memory in RAM that much because it's stored on disk. You can preview it here though and scrub through that. And so now let's go and turn this into an animation that we will then flip upside down to make it a tunnel. So let's go transform this to a puppy ray. GPU. Again, if you don't have a good GPU or a fast system, you can use the regular puppy ray that runs on the CPU to do very similar. The interface is a little bit different, but it's going to be usable just the same. So what I'll do is set the preview here, preview quality, go to the beginning, empty the keyframes in case you've used this before. Let's make sure we don't have too many keyframes there. And so let's go set the first keyframe at about this juncture here. We want the horizon to be roughly in the middle, right? Point it so that it's roughly in the middle, perhaps a little bit up. But what you want to do is think about how it's going to look when you flip it upside down. In fact, you can rotate it here with the right button while you're on this camera rotation mode, just to get an idea of what it's going to look like this way. In fact, you could have the mirror mode enabled and it will show it upside down at the same time. Sometimes that's a little bit too much though, so what I would like to do is just say let's keep it this way, so we'll have the ability to use it without the mirror and then just flip it to also use it with the mirror. Alright, so let's go and store this keyframe and then simply go to the last one and move the camera or move the terrain. You have a choice here. You can move the world and move it into the scene. Now you don't want to branch to the side channels here. Let's make sure we keep it steady going forward. And you could just do one cycle across one repetition of all this, or you could do a whole bunch of them, you know, go really fast forward into this entire world there. So there you go. Let's go something like this, and perhaps a tiny little bit rotation or not. There you go. Let's keyframe that. Adjust also how much brightness you want, how high you want the light source. You can get those shadows to go like this, or you want the light source perhaps actually right ahead of you, kind of where you're heading towards as you're flying to it. So make sure you drag this light source away into the back of that scene, and that could be an animation itself, right? I mean, that is what this is going to do right now. So, but you see now that we have the light source kind of casting shadows right from there. This is going to be great if we then later add a lens flare that's right here in the vanishing point. So let's go and keyframe to that. The fog might be another thing we can adjust. We want to probably look really far there, but not farther than where the light is. So adjust it to that, and there you go. So let's go and render that in an animation. like that. Click on animate and set the setting to whatever you need. I'm going to go fast here and just keep it at high quality, not the final render necessarily. It's still going to take a few seconds for each frame here, because these are fairly high resolutions. And you know what, that's too slow for this quick demo. So I'm going to stop this and actually re-render it. And I know I'm going to lose some of the frames, but that's okay. I'm going to go and render medium quality, so that's going to go a little bit faster. There you go. So what we're doing now is simply rendering this into an animation at medium quality, really not the final render you will want to do typically when you set it all up. But once that's done, we then have something we can equally use as a tunnel by simply flipping it upside down, or even mirroring it left to right and flipping it upside down. So you have 4 quadrants that will be created from that. You can perhaps look in the upper right corner and say that's the one you want, and it flips it, mirrors it sideways and upside down as well. This one is actually already upside down in that sense, so we'll need to make sure we flip it before we then start working from that upper right quadrant. I'll explain that in a second. Rendering almost done here. Again, I don't have a super fast GPU here. This might go much faster on your system, especially if you have a monster gamer machine. Let's go and check this out. So we probably have a few frames at the beginning that, oh no, it's all clean, it's all good. There you go. So let's go play that. Okay. So let's do the following. First of all, let's go store that, right? Let's make sure we have a stored copy to disk. And then we can do a couple of things. One is perhaps make it a little bit smaller, just for the sake of this demo. I don't need to keep it at the very highest resolution. So let's go and go to the image and make resample. Resample that to half the size, so that will be 640 by 360, quad HD, and a quarter high definition. There you go. So it's now giving me a slightly smaller version of the same. And then once I have that, I want to just show you how to turn that into kind of a tunnel, right? A couple of things to do with that. Let's turn the preview on the brush off. Let's store this animation. That's going to go faster now because it's a quarter of the size. I think there it is. Yep. This one I don't need anymore. This one I don't need anymore. Be careful with those. You never know. You might still need them after all. So here's the animation. And here's my initial animation, and I'd like to work with that now to prepare it for use as a tunnel. So one thing we'll do is flip it upside down. Go to image and flip and vertical, right? Boom. It does that for the one current image you're looking at, but it asks, do you want to apply that to the whole animation? Sure enough. Click OK. So now the entire image sequence is upside down. Okay, that one we also need to store. Let's use that one, store that. All right, so we have the original, and then we have this one here upside down. This one is really the one I'm going to use now. So I'm going to go now flip it vertically, but also enable the mirror. It's actually already flipped, so that's good. We can just enable mirroring, right? Vertical mirror. And what it does is it takes the top part and mirrors it upside down. So let's go do that, enable vertical mirror, there you go. And now if you scrub through that, it looks pretty good, but it might, if you scrub too fast, it might actually miss some of the frames, and when you play it, it might do a little bit of flicker. Didn't do that too much here, but yeah, you see some of them. So what you want to do is really apply that with the filter animated, apply mirror. Make sure that every single frame is being rendered and seen, and then that way you can then turn this thing here off, the mirror, or just clear these settings, and then now you have a fairly clean display. And so that's how you create a tunnel that was initially a ray traced rendering from that Puppy Ray. Now this one is symmetrical in a vertical sense, but you could also add even yet another one, which is the symmetrical horizontal. So now you have now you actually have two exits here because it wasn't exactly in the middle. Look at that. But that's two we will want to apply on let's see, render through animated, apply mirror. There you go. Let's go store that one as well. And there's perhaps one more thing we'll probably want to do with that, and it's perhaps to rotate it. Now at this point we probably, I mean, there's really two ways. You can rotate it and still keep the mirror enabled, and that will really create some kaleidoscope style effects. That's going to make my head spin. But the other thing you could do is simply turn that off now and then start rotating it. Right, so rotating, for instance, with the transform tool, I would go, for instance, in the timeline at this time probably, go to the transform category for the timeline, the group of filters, there it is, the transform, and start transforming, including the rotation right here, so you can do a little bit of a spinning rotation along that axis. The problem with this is it's not tiling it to the sides, so you'll need to zoom in a little bit so you have some margin that you can play with. Another way to work with this is to pick this entire thing up as a custom animator brush and then do simply play it from the brush keyframer. Play it over itself, over the entire animation. So let me try that. I'm going to go to, let's see, how do we do that? There's a couple of ways to do that. I'm going to simply pick it up here with the custom brush selector. And that's going to be memory intensive, by the way. You want to be careful about that. But I'm going to hold the Alt key down. Oh, make sure that you're on the first frame if you want it all. Hold the Alt key down and select everything here. So now it goes through the entire frame sequence and captures that into an animator brush. And then once I have it in the animator brush that way, I'm either going to run out of memory or or not, and I'm going to want to store that. Again, that's not necessarily a must-have, but it helps. And then go to animated brush keyframer, and that's where we now are using that same image right there. Right, this is in the brush. This is the background. Happens to be identical because we took the second from the first. But what we'll do is we'll use that to scale up a little bit, to change the angle, and most importantly to do so in a way which is keyframed. So we could go even do a little bit of a wobbly thing here. Right, so we could at the beginning keyframe it. And you see the keyframe right there. Then we go around here and move it down a little bit. Perhaps there we go the rotation and zoom in and keyframe it there. Then we go to this place and we rotate it back the other way. Where's the angle? There you go. And you notice it's a little bit transparent there. There is some transparency to that, and that may be because of the custom brush. It probably keyed to white. That's an interesting thing you can exploit if you want that, right? We probably didn't want it in this case, but sometimes that's exactly what you do want to do. So that's kind of a side note on what you can do because it's in the brush. You can do all sorts of other things with that. Triple spin it around, make it disappear, fade it away also. There you go. And so at that point, I'm just going to render that and see what happens, right? I mean, so here's the really weird animation I've just created, and it only gets weirder from here. I mean, you can see what I just created is right here, and you know, turn that into a put a mirror on that again, and it gets even more weird. Look at that. Go into where is it? Right here. Mirror, horizontal mirror. Yeah, horizontal mirror. Let's do both. Let's do mirror, horizontal and vertical, and apply mirror. Where is it? Filter, animated, apply mirror. There you go. And see what that's what I'm talking about. It's just looking like more and more out of this world, you know. And that's perhaps one more thing. Increase the contrast a little bit, expand dynamic range, apply that, yep, to the whole animation. And there you go. So this is another type of tunnel, and I wanted to just cover that so that you have some more ideas about stuff you could do with PD Howler 9.2. And I'll let you go for now. We'll be back with another tutorial continuing that mini-series on making tunnels in space and all sorts of weird experiments like this one. Thanks for watching.